Well, I think the big thing about Cantona was his prowess in the penalty spot. He made penalty spots cool. I don't know why you're laughing at that.
Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of 80% Mental, which is turning out to just be an absolutely fantastic sports psychology podcast. If you're new to the show, 80% Mental is all about how important the mind is in the world of sport. And each week we'll start by asking a question about the psychology of sport, and then we'll look at the evidence, ask the experts, and try and come up with some answers for you. So in episode 1, we talked to Dr. Jonathan Fader about what sports psychology actually is, how it can help sports performers. And in episode 2, we explored the idea of a winning mindset and how we might develop one if one exists at all. And also, don't forget to check out episode 0 if you want to know a little bit more about us and what the show is about. So really, I guess following on from our discussion of winning mindsets in the last episode, this week's question is, who, mentally speaking, is the GOAT, the greatest of all time? So who's calm under pressure, who comes through in the clutch moments, who gives every ounce of blood, sweat, and tears in the pursuit of excellence? And what is it that actually makes an athlete, mentally speaking anyway, great? So as usual, I'm joined by Hugh Gilmore. Hugh, how are you doing?
Not too bad. I'm a bit scared about this episode.
Scared? Why scared?
I believe it's a bit of competition, and also I'm looking at our guests and also realize that they seem more prepared than I am. And they're all smiling and happy, so that must mean they're confident.
We'll get to that.
I brought notes.
Whoa, that's an A4 page.
Wow.
Oh my
okay,
God.
so you might have surmised already that we're going to do things a little bit differently this week. So rather than just me and Hugh arguing about who's the greatest for half an hour, because we're scientists, we're going to objectively sort of look at the evidence and settle it once and for all. Who's the greatest athlete of all time, mentally speaking? So we've got some guests today, and each of our guests has nominated an athlete who they think is the mental GOAT. And we're going to objectively decide who should be awarded that title. The second part of the show, we'll have a bit of a discussion around some of the things that might have come up, like what is it that actually makes an athlete great in the first place. But I'm genuinely excited to have 3 distinguished guests on the show today who've each, as I say, nominated an athlete that they think is the mental GOAT. So first up, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Chelsea Day, a sports psychologist at Ohio State University. Chelsea's a licensed psychologist who specializes in clinical sports psychology and right now provides mental health and performance enhancement services to collegiate student athletes. Chelsea, welcome to 80% Mental.
Thanks for having me.
You're very, very welcome. How's your week been?
It's been good. It's been a little crazy. I am transitioning back into the office a little bit and really happy to see people that don't live in my house. So that's been awesome. The people who live in my house are great, but it's been months of just them. So happy to see some fresh faces.
Just to put that in context, we're recording this episode during a global pandemic where people are kind of stuck in their houses. You don't just spend all day, every day in your house.
Typically not, yeah.
No. So who's the athlete that you're nominating as the mental GOAT?
I am nominating the one and only Tiger Woods. And I think it's a hot take, but I think it's a good one.
I think most people are probably familiar with who Tiger Woods is, but for the uninitiated, just tell us a little bit about Tiger.
Tiger Woods is a multiple domain record holder in a lot of performance areas in terms of wins in golf, who played golf since he was a teeny tiny, little kid until currently and still playing. I think that if we look at the trajectory of his life now, we have to use the context of me being a clinical sports psychologist. It's going to make things make a lot more sense when we look at the trajectory of his life paralleled with the trajectory of his career and some of the things that he was able to win despite. I think I have a good case for how mentally tough or strong that he really is.
Fantastic. I think Hugh's just looking even more worried now.
I have something on Tiger Woods that I will be using to put you down.
Okay, I'm ready.
Shots fired.
I'm ready. I can't hold up my paper to show you the notes I have, but I've got them in a Word document on the other half of the screen. So I'm ready. Bring it.
Okay, so I'm looking forward to this already. So our second guest today is none other than Todd Cawthorn. Now, if you follow basketball in the UK, you'll know who Todd is. I appreciate that's quite a small niche audience, so I'm going to introduce him properly anyway. Hailing from Roanoke, Virginia, Todd went to the College of William and Mary, also in Virginia. And then Todd moved to Europe to play basketball professionally, and ended up playing for the Sheffield Sharks for 12 seasons. And you won a couple of trophies there, did you not, Todd?
That's right, yeah. We won the league and we won the cup in our very first season. And it was the first year that the team actually existed, so it was a pretty big achievement at the time to come in and do that. And I ended up playing 7 more years and winning the league, won the cup again, won the trophy as well. So yeah, it was a good time, and I still live in Sheffield now.
Okay, and you played in Europe for a bit as well, didn't you?
That's correct. I played in Austria my first season, which was 93, 94. Dated myself there. And I also played in Belgium for 2 years, which I really loved, and unfortunately the rest of my family did not.
Hence Sheffield. Okay, so Todd, tell us a little bit about the athlete who you've nominated as the mental GOAT.
Well, I've nominated Roger Federer as the mental GOAT. There's a few reasons. There was, I think, in tennis terms, what he's been able to achieve in his career that's actually still going now, and the longevity. The fact that he's been able to overcome injuries. He has an amazing win percentage. He's got the highest number of Grand Slams titles of any tennis player. I think his calmness under pressure and his consistency are 2 of his defining characteristics for me to name him the mental GOAT.
Awesome. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Don't give too much away. I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Leah Washington, a professor of sports medicine and sports psychology. Leah's worked at all levels, from youth sports right through to pro sports, specializing in working with injured athletes and helping sports medicine professionals incorporate sports psych into their clinical practice. Leah also wanted me to tell you that her favorite color is glitter. Leah, welcome to 80% Mental.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
Spectacular.
You spent some time working in ice hockey as well, right?
Yep, I did. I worked in the Buffalo Sabres organization as an assistant athletic trainer for the Rochester Americans.
Yeah. So Leah, you mentioned that you haven't picked a hockey athlete. Tell us a little bit about the athlete that you have picked or nominated for the Mental GOAT Award.
So I am nominating United States gymnast Carrie Strug. Most people know her for the vault in the 1996 Olympics. And I chose her. I was a gymnast, which you can probably tell by everything about me.
We can't see you, Leah. It's a podcast.
Yeah, but we're recording some video and you guys can see me, so it's fine. So anyway, I was a gymnast. And I think that, she had a huge impact culturally, but I think that even though this was one significant moment for her and for the United States, I think it had a lot of reverberations across the sport and across how we view gymnastics, and as well as how gymnastics is viewed in the United States. So I think even though it was one specific moment, or her mental toughness led her to this one specific moment in her sport, her impact on the cultural component of the sport was massive.
Okay, thank you. You kind of talked about a specific moment there, and I was checking it out this morning. I remember watching that because I remember I must have been about 17, and it was at that time when I was just watching literally any sport. So I was watching the gymnastics at the Olympics, and I actually remember watching it happen. But we're going to put the link to a video of it in the description for this podcast, so people can check it out, because it's a if you haven't seen it, if you don't know it, it's like a seminal moment in sports. Hugh, I am absolutely just intrigued to hear who you've chosen as the mental GOAT and why.
Well, I'll not say why just yet, but I think it's unquestionable and without doubt that Eric Cantona is the mental GOAT. The absolute pièce de la résistance of fortitude in the field of play and life.
Okay, and just for people who have never heard of Eric Cantona, can we have, who is he?
Well, I think he's a footballer. I'm trying to remember from my childhood, because I've completely lost touch with all sport. So I think he's a footballer from my childhood.
Right, this is going to go amazingly well. Okay, here's how this is going to work then. I've come up with 4 categories, which all together will determine who the mental GOAT truly is. So category 1 is, did they have anything that they had to overcome in order to be great? The second category is, would they still be considered mentally great if they never won anything, or if they were just on a bad team? And why is that? 3, does or did the athlete look cool while they were being awesome? Which I think is actually more important than a lot of people give credit for. And 4, does the athlete have a defining moment that marks them out as the mental GOAT? We've also got like a 5th round, which is just the chance for anybody to give any kind of last statements, any last arguments about their athlete. So, and this is already ridiculously overcomplicated for what is a non-visual medium. In each category, each guest will have up to 60 seconds to talk about their athlete. After a guest has spoken, they can be asked follow-up questions by the other guests. I'll allocate some points for answers in each of the categories based on a system which I will be making up as I go along. And in the end, we will have scientifically, objectively decided who the mental GOAT is. Okay, so just to remind everybody who's listening, or if anybody's listening still, before we start, so Dr. Chelsea Day has picked Tiger Woods, Todd Cawthorn has picked Roger Federer, Leah Washington has picked Kerry Strug, and Hugh Gilmore has picked, bafflingly, Eric Cantona. You might also notice that we've kind of left some athletes out. For example, there's some athletes that you might have thought of that don't appear in this list. So go to the website, www.80percentmental.com. Leave us a comment with your nominations, or you can tweet us at EPM Podcast with your mentally great athlete suggestions, and let us know why you think your athlete should have made the list. Okay, let's get to it, and let's decide who the mental GOAT is. So I'm going to start with Chelsea. Did your athlete have anything that they had to overcome in order to be great?
Oh, did he ever? So not only was he a single sport athlete, which what we know about some of our most successful athletes in the world competed in multi-sport growing up, which actually is hugely beneficial. He was very close with his father, who died in 2006, following which he still was able to win many events, even as his personal life and mental health was unraveling to a wild degree, was still able to overcome that in that time to win many events. So, he's still playing and playing well. He has also overcome alleged affairs, crashing his car in a very public thing, a very public divorce. So, he's overcome a whole lot. So I think that unequivocally yes is the long answer. Short answer. Yes is the short answer. I gave you the long answer.
Okay. Hugh, you look like you want to say something.
No comment.
Fair enough. Okay, good, and also within the time as well. So well done, Chelsea, for that. Let's go to Hugh next. So Eric Cantona, did they have anything to overcome that you can remember to become great?
Well, I think one of the greatest moments in sport ever was when Eric Cantona was assaulted by a fan, and they threw a pound coin at him or some other missile, and he decided to run and drop kick the fan in the stands and basically take him out, aiming for his front teeth, both feet at teeth height, which was just exceptional athleticism. But he had to overcome obviously the challenge of a prison sentence, and then when he did, he had to speak to the media, and he did it by telling them that they were all just seagulls that follow the trawler, in his own bit of poetry. And I think that's just perfection.
We might be able to end it there. I kicked someone in the teeth with both feet, prison. That's, yeah.
I mean, that's a lot.
So would you consider that to be the embodiment of resilience then?
Indeed. I mean, what could be more resilient than going, oh, this is the best bit. He said, afterwards, he says, I do what I want. I am not your role model. Like that is boom. You've got confidence. You don't care what society thinks. You do what you want.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of veered away from overcoming obstacles, but I like it.
Or jumping over them.
Executing perfect flying kicks over obstacles to become great. Leah, Kerri Strug, anything to overcome to be great?
Well, I think, I mean, she was only, I think, 18 at the time of this Olympics. So she didn't have a whole lot to go through in her life. She did go through a bunch of coaching changes, and she had had some pretty severe injuries. And so she was kind of, if you are familiar with, the Olympic cycle, by the time they get to the Olympics, they're sort of all kind of held together by duct tape and paper clips, and kind of like, so everybody on that team kind of was dealing with some injuries at the time. She wasn't in like so she wasn't in like her peak condition when she started to begin with. And also, for those of you who are not familiar with gymnastics, a lot of gymnasts, she started when she was 3 years old. She started competing when she was 8. And it's not uncommon to have the same coach through your whole life. And so there was a lot of sort of upheaval in her career up to this point. So I wouldn't say that there was maybe necessarily, she didn't crash a car, she didn't cheat on anybody.
That you know of.
However, that I'm aware of, entirely possible. But given the fact that she had a fairly up and down sort of coaching choices, but was able to sort of maintain her stability over her career. Has always been sort of like this unsung, very consistent athlete throughout. I think says a lot about her.
Okay. I mean, that was way over a minute, but it's the first round, so we're just kind of getting into it. I'm going to let you off with that. That's fine. So who we left with? Todd. Roger Federer. Did Roger Federer have to overcome anything great? No. Did he have to overcome anything to become great?
Well, I think for him, the obstacles that he's had to contend with, they're based more around, I think, the general life of a lot of tennis players, whereby they're sent away very young to live on their own, or to live in perhaps in Bradenton, Florida, where a lot of them end up to start with at IMG. But he actually went away to, sounds really picturesque actually, Lake Geneva in Switzerland, which is where the tennis academy is. And but he struggled. I think he struggled when he was younger. He struggled living away from home. So really, the career that he's had almost never got started, because he struggled mentally to cope, I think, with those obstacles. He's also had a lot of injuries, most notably a knee injury and a back injury sustained, one in 2014, one in 2016, but he ended up being the comeback player of the year in 2018. And getting back on top in tennis that year. And he also has 2 sets of twins. I mean, that is pretty difficult. And I know he's on the road a lot, but anybody who can cope with 2 sets of twins, I think, has probably got to overcome some obstacles.
Yeah, I think that's actually just jumped him up from third place up into second. Just the twins thing alone. So, anybody got any challenges or any comeback? Because I mean, I think I've got some things to say about Tiger Woods, but I want to open it up to the floor first.
Well, I don't think golf's that difficult of a sport. I mean, it's essentially a walk for a start, and
I mean, it's more like a skill.
But but that's true. But here's why then they are mental goats, because it is not physically demanding, but it is a fully mental sport. So when you can succeed, it's because you have mastered the mental aspect of it, because we've seen very out of shape, very successful golfers. So it's really it's maybe more than 80% mental.
That is a fair point. I was thinking more about kind of overcoming obstacles. Does that count if they're obstacles that you've kind of created in your own life?
Yeah, that was my question. What about self-imposed obstacles?
I mean, it's still an obstacle. I mean, I feel like many obstacles are self-imposed. Overuse injuries are self-imposed.
Well, I think
you trained, you pushed through. You didn't take the time you needed. Maybe you didn't get the right treatment. So I'm just saying.
Are you suggesting that the affair was an overuse injury? Because that's a whole other show.
He did go to sex addiction treatment, so we could call that an overuse injury.
Oh, fair enough. Todd, you were going to say something.
I think both with Cantona and with Tiger Woods, I'd argue that they were probably both had attributes of being mentally strong, but they also had huge public mental breakdowns that they went through. Tiger Woods, so you could argue that he overcame that, came back, won the Masters, I believe. But I think it is that being able to cope with that success, which I think is why Federer even has, not only has he been able to cope with that success, but he's been able to create a brand. Like everything he encompasses is a brand, and also the charitable work that he's done as well. $50 million of charity work, affected over 1 million children throughout, most notably in South Africa, but throughout Africa as well, educating them. And his foundation does amazing work. So there's kind of that all-encompassing brand that he's been able to create of himself, of being consistent, being a winner, but also helping other people and helping with his foundation as well.
To be nitpicky, I think that Federer is clearly like the best human of the bunch, I might argue. But if we're talking...
The most handsome, for sure.
For certain. But if we're talking, purely mental kind of toughness and skill, you can be a shitty person. Am I allowed to swear on this? You can be a shitty person and still, perform out of your mind. So I don't feel like you get points for being a good person.
Well, we can get into that a little bit later. Because we need to move on. We need to move on to round 2. I've awarded some points for that, which I'll tell you what they are later. Round 2 is, would they still be considered mentally great if they'd never won? Like if they were on a bad team, or if they just hadn't achieved kind of the level of success that they had achieved. So we'll start with Hugh this time. Eric Cantona, would he still be considered mentally great if he wasn't an exceptionally talented football player?
Well, I think the big thing about Cantona was his prowess in the penalty spot. He made penalty spots cool. So yeah, I don't know why you're laughing at that.
He made penalty spots cool. I mean,
yeah, he was good at them, and kids were all when kids in the playground were taking penalties, that's who they thought they were, was Eric Cantona.
Yeah, that's fair. So would he have been mentally great if he wasn't quite as spectacular a role model in the penalty department?
Well, I think that's the thing. Individually, he was good, and he would have been individually good in an individual setting, even if he was on a crap team. So there's nothing more individually good about standing up and taking a penalty. So yeah, I think he's good. No one in England can take a penalty. So Cantona,
You knew that was coming.
Cantona's like
You knew that
pretty
was coming.
good, you know.
I want to go on record and say that England have turned around their penalty woes and will never lose a penalty shootout again.
Bold statement.
I mean, you know, we'll see. Okay, so Leah then, Kerri Strug, would she still be considered mentally great if she hadn't, you know, won the gold medal? If America had walked away with a bronze, would we still be talking about Kerri Strug in the same way?
Well, I think the argument really is that she wouldn't have had her moment had she not been as mentally great as she is. That as gymnasts, I think all gymnasts are mentally tough. That, you know, find somebody else who wants to flip upside down on a, you know, 4-inch wide piece of wood, that you have to have a certain baseline level of mental toughness to be a gymnast in the first place. And that she never would have had her moment had she not been as mentally tough as she was.
Okay, so I just want to. I'm going in hard here, Leah. Be prepared. What's the difference? You're saying they're mentally tough. What's the difference between mental toughness and just delusionary stupidity? Because like attempting to do a backflip on a beam, like just trying that doesn't make me mentally tough. It would make me delusionally stupid. And you know, it's a bit glossy just saying, oh, they're mentally tough. Like, really?
So I understand what you're saying. However, it's only delusionary if you don't know what the outcome is, right? Like you have to.
Sorry, who lives near a train track?
Oh, sorry, that's me.
Okay.
The train doesn't agree with you.
I think the train is cheering me on, quite frankly.
The train is deplatforming you.
Yes, while it would appear on the surface that gymnasts are completely delusional and insane, I think that, you know, there are crazy people who like want to flip off a thing once for funsies. But then there are the gymnasts who think, you know what? No, I can do this better. I can make this look good. I can do this with style. And I think that's where the mental toughness comes in, where you can say, no, I'm going to keep at this until it looks awesome.
But can I also make a bit of a counter argument that maybe being delusionally stupid is one of the greatest aspects of mental toughness at large? That when we think about mentally tough people, they're often putting themselves in ridiculous and outrageous circumstances over and over and over that people who do not have what we define as mental toughness don't do, which is what sets them apart. Divers diving off 10-meter platforms, both mentally tough, but like pretty stupid. Footballers standing within feet, they have to put their hands on their crotch so they don't like get their stuff smashed. Like, I'm not trying to stand in front of like a really good footballer kicking a ball at me, like a hard pass. So I think that a component of mental toughness is being able to suspend reality and stay engaged in a little bit of delusional stupidity. I think without that, you can't be mentally tough. Like, I'm also not standing in front of a tennis serve. Like, if Federer served, I would like lay on the ground. I'd be like, nope, I'm so not into that.
I'd nope right out of that.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that maybe those things are kind of one and the same.
Yeah, Federer, 77% lifetime first serve points won. 89%.
Because it's scary.
Yeah, 89% lifetime of service games won. 89%.
Todd's done some research. So speaking of Arfed and his percentage of first serves in, would he still be considered mentally great, Todd, had his first serve percentage been somewhat lower?
Well, possibly not. I think that, I think it does. I think achievement, winning, consistently winning, overcoming other great athletes, other mentally great athletes, or situations, as in if you overcome, that situation to make yourself great and score that perfect 10 or whatever it is, and the fact that the people who did research and cared about this episode picked individual athletes, individual sport athletes, and
Shots fired.
the amount of that they have to invest of themselves and the amount of training and what they have to give up. So there's that sacrifice element. And I think if you play in a team sport, because I played in a team sport, I like playing in a team sport. I think I would really struggled to play an individual sport. Mentally, I may not have done anything in a sport. Whereas playing a team sport, I bought into that ethos more, and I was more adept at playing within a team. So I think that those characteristics come to the forefront. But no, I don't think, I don't think that he would be considered, or for me to consider him, or just to generally be considered if he hadn't won so much.
Chelsea, what do you have to say about your athlete? Would Tiger Woods still be considered great if he just hadn't been as successful?
I'm going to take a semi-non-committal stance on this, but I think we have a little bit of evidence that, pre-2009 Tiger obviously and most definitely was the most successful, the most notable. But we also then saw him not win a lot from 2010 through the most recent Masters win. That there wasn't a lot of notable performances like there was before that. And yet I still think that, when you watch him play those rounds, even when he's not winning, I think that you can still see a lot of aspects of that mental toughness, despite the fact that he wasn't winning. So I think we have a little bit of evidence, now a little bit of that's riding high off of having been so incredible for so many years that I think we give him a little bit more leeway and grace there when he was in that period of non-winning. But he's probably the only athlete in the group where we actually got to watch him because he had that visibility and spotlight when he wasn't winning. And still in terms of some of that consistency and, demeanor and what you can see on the course, I think that very likely, though I do think an argument can be made that that's because we had seen him as great. And so we had the opportunity to see him as less performing. So I think probably, but I'm not going to go on record saying unequivocally yes.
I think it's difficult in any individual sport to say that somebody would be considered to be mentally great if they don't win. I think that in a team sport, you can potentially be considered great and not and never have won an NBA championship, a la, Charles Barkley, maybe somebody like that. You can be considered to be a really good player, but you just didn't win any NBA championships. I think that's possible for an individual sport. I just don't think it can go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think it's a tough question to really sort of parse out, right? Because it's like at a certain level, when you reach this elite level, like everybody is good. And so, the thing that's going to separate you is the mental component. So you can't say, oh, well, they wouldn't have been mentally tough had they not won, because they wouldn't have won had they not been mentally tough. So for me, it's like, it's a circular art. It's like begging the question, right? Like, I think particularly in an individual sport, when I think about like Carrie's training that she did prior to the Olympics, it was her and her teammate Dominique Moceanu in the gym by themselves 6 hours a day, every single day, just them and the coaches, literally nobody else. Like you have to have a certain level of toughness just to show up every single day by yourself and put in all those hours.
I also think we wouldn't know who they are in an individual sport versus a team sport. You can be on a chronically underperforming team and still be an obviously star player. And I think that in a lot of individual sports, you would never have the platform to be known. So, there may be athletes who are more mentally tough if we were able to more objectively look at it, but we don't know that they exist because for whatever reason, they've not been elevated to the level of visibility. I always joke with friends that like, there may be farmers in the US who have the potential to be the best basketball player who ever lived, but they're too busy farming. It's an unrealized talent. And so I think that that's the trouble too with an individual sport athlete is they only get the platform for us to consider them in this if they've won. So if they're not winning, sure, maybe they're more mentally tough, maybe, but we don't know who they are.
But there's also an argument to say that, like, football, tennis, golf, to your argument, you can play any of those sports to a decently high level for a really, really long time and earn good money and earn a good salary. In gymnastics, that might not be the case. Even be amazing at gymnastics, you might not earn any money. So if you looked at the risk versus reward and the value of what being the athlete brings to you, actually, if you're a gymnast and you're not successful, you're not going to get a lot of value out of being the gymnast from a financial point of view. Whereas, I mean, who knows who Craig Stadler is? Do you know who Craig Stadler is?
I do not.
He's a really good golfer. He played through the 80s, through the 90s, and won tons of money, but nobody knows who he is. He didn't win any majors. He wasn't. So I think you can, you have to have kind of that different viewpoint on the sport and what it brings to you as a reward as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think to Todd's point, like if I asked you to name any of the other 6 members of that gymnastics team, nobody knows who those people are.
Mary Lou Retton.
And she was 1984.
No, I'm just kidding.
But like we only have these like singular gymnasts that have these like major moments because the only time we pay attention to gymnastics is in the Olympics. They're clearly not doing it for the notoriety. They're clearly not doing it for any kind of paycheck. They're, and now they have like sponsors and things like that, and they can sort of make a living out of it. But, at that time, especially in 1996, like that was not a thing. And United States gymnastics was not even a thing. And that's, part of why I think one of her Kerri Strug's biggest accomplishments is that it put United States gymnastics on the map.
What's Cantona's kind of national team? What did he do for the national team?
I think he's French, so he probably played for that.
Good guess.
And that's the extent of my football knowledge. I think I've been found out as somebody who doesn't follow sport.
Let's move on. Some really interesting stuff there around kind of the idea that there's these really mentally strong athletes who their strength or their kind of greatness mentally is in the grind and in the longevity rather than in the perhaps success that they may or may not have the opportunity to actually achieve. Let's move on to by far the most important round. Did the athlete look cool when they were performing? Leah, let's go to you first.
Oh, 100%. Kerri Strug looked amazing. So I want to actually give a little teeny bit of context to this in case anybody's not familiar with the vault as it happened. This was the first Olympics that the United States had the potential to win a gold medal as a team. The Russians / Soviet Republic had won every single team gold medal since 1948. So by the time we get to 1996, we're sort of at this like changing of the guard moment. And they go into the final round, and the United States is actually pretty up ahead by almost a whole point, which is a lot in gymnastics. And so Kerri Strug is the last competitor in the last event, and it's basically all down to her as to whether or not the United States wins a gold medal. And she fell on her first vault, and she injured her ankle. And so she had a whole moment on the mat where she was like, this doesn't feel great. And she even talked about how she was like, I thought, maybe it would just kind of like, I could shake it off and it would be fine. Because that happens a lot in gymnastics. Like you land on your face and you just need a minute to like gather yourself. It stings and then you're okay. And she said, by the time she got down to the back end of the runway, and the pain wasn't subsiding, and she's shaking it. You could see her like rolling it out, and of course the commentators are like, "Oh my God, she's hurt. She's everything. It's bad." She goes. And it's not like she was on bars where she could have just swung around and then just maybe had a little landing and then it would be fine. She had to run full speed down this runway, tumble and land on this ankle. And it turned out actually she had torn 2 different ligaments in her ankle at the time. And she landed it on 1 foot. And if that's not fucking badass, then I don't know what is. She looked awesome. And there's 32,000 people in the arena and they're going berserk. And then they're also cutting away to like the Russian gymnasts who are literally sobbing because they know that they're not going to win the gold medal for the first time in 50 years.
Well, I have a thought on this. I mean, does the outcome determine the greatest of all time? Because I can think of a rugby player for Ulster who cleared out a scrum with a broken forearm. And, everyone was saying, oh, he's brave, he's this, he's that, he's other. But if, taking that risk, he could have actually ended his career if he had got like a perforation of his skin and damaged some nerve from if he had got another tackle on it. Same with your gymnast. I mean, if she actually destroyed her ankle completely in that landing and maybe then did out the rest of her entire career, is the outcome a signifier of what's important? I mean, how do we know that's not just a stupid attempt that you shouldn't have pulled out?
I mean, she's kind of talked about this a little bit in that she thought, she was in her head. She was like, this is what I've worked my entire life for. This is what we've always wanted. This is, she, in her head, she was like, this has to go. This pain has to go away. It just has to. It has to go away because this is it. This is everything. And so I think if you asked her again in this moment, if she would have done anything differently, I don't think she would have. I think she would have, absolutely would have, think she would have vaulted again. No question.
And it looked cool. And that's worth lots and lots of points.
Amazing.
Todd, I mean, Roger Federer, did he look cool? Does he look cool when he's playing? I mean, that's an easy one.
Yeah, it's an easy question to answer for him. Yeah, he's got this kind of persona, these characteristics of he doesn't scream, he doesn't shout like when he serves, he doesn't do a thing when he serves.
I'm just going to clip just that noise.
Soundbite for you. It's a drop for your next podcast. He just, I guess the hair, the bandana, he's 6'1", but he's compact. He's well built without having one forearm that's 3 times the size of the other one, which you see a lot of times in some tennis players as well. And the way he kind of moves around the court has been commented by everyone on how effortless he is able to get around the court. And then off the court as well. I mean, even this year, he's the highest paid athlete in the entire world. His sponsorship, brands want to be associated with him. He earned $106 million this past year. So I think that not only do I think he's cool and do not tennis fans think he looks cool, but I think the biggest determining factor is that brands want to be associated with him and they want to sponsor him. So I think that that they know that they can access large and vast amounts of people who also think he looks cool and want to be like him.
Chelsea, what about Tiger Woods? Does Tiger look cool?
So for a second, I was like, I gotta crawl out of the pit on this category from the bottom. But then Todd made this great point about sponsorships. And if we actually look back to 2006, 7, 8, 9, Tiger was what he's talking about with Federer. He had brands clamoring after him. He had his own Gatorade line. People wanted to be associated with him. He was a bit of a turning point in terms of apparel. There are way cooler looking golfers now in terms of apparel with some of the young guys who can be a little bit more bold with what they wear. But a Tiger kind of came in with this Nike contract and had some pretty cool outfits at a time when we were transitioning away from the funky plaids and like weird polyester golf outfits and moved into a little bit more kind of slim cut, able to show that he was also one of the more fit golfers coming in at the time versus our smoking, drinking, heavier golfers. He had a lot more coolness. Now, not not to be ageist, I think he's, again, less cool looking now compared to who he's competing against. But I think he
also always has to be wearing a hat. I think there's the problem with Tiger Woods is that when he takes his hat off, he looks
now. But I don't know that I think that I definitely agree with you in the last few years. But I think
he just needs to bring it home. Just bring it home, Tiger.
Yes, but I'm calling back to the early Tiger, who was one of the cooler athletes in his prime. So again, if we're talking over the career, which I would argue is what GOAT is considering, right? Not just like a one-off. You're not a GOAT if you have like a couple good years. I think a GOAT is someone who persistently and consistently embodies that. And so, he's been cool for a really long time, and now he's getting a little older and he's less cool, but we're all getting less cool, arguably. Sorry, guys. Than maybe in our heydays.
Yeah.
Leo, we were way cooler a handful of years ago in Paris. But so again, I think that he was really cool, and I think that if we go with Todd's kind of sponsorship piece, that was a proven thing back in kind of his peak.
I mean, his mugshot's pretty cool. His mugshot picture is pretty cool.
Cooler than many.
I would also like to say that Carrie Strug was on Saturday Night Live and was in 2 different SportsCenter commercials. And if you've ever listened to her talk, she sounds like a tiny little chipmunk, because she is. And the fact that she was able to go on Saturday Night Live and make fun of herself, I think says a lot about her personality and how she could have been like, oh my God, whatever, and then like gone on with her life. But she knows she knows what she sounds like. She knows what she's literally 4 feet 7 inches tall. She's a miniature human being. And, I think the ability to laugh at yourself like automatically elevates you.
Amazing. Hugh, I really want to know what you're going to say about Eric Cantona.
Well, Chelsea thinks that sponsorship is important, and
Todd made that argument. I second it. And Todd made it.
You second it. The two of you're in cahoots, and I'm going to bring you both down. The problem is, right? Sponsorship is money, but Cantona used to do this thing with his collar, where he'd put his collar up. And that was really cool, to the point where every school in the country had this issue with kids putting their collar up. But not only that, nobody cares about sponsorship. It's about tattoos, right? How many people out there have tattoos of a flying Frenchman with his collar up landing 2 feet onto a football hooligan's skull? I would say there's at least 2 people, and that's much more impressive than any sponsorship deal.
That's not based on any kind of knowledge whatsoever, is it?
Hugh, that was way better of an argument than I expected about your footballer. So I'm very impressed and pleased with that argument, because I agree that many of those things are very cool.
Yeah, I mean, as impartial as I'm supposed to be during this, Eric Cantona is probably one of the coolest people on earth. So, I mean, Hugh gets lots of points for that round. But everybody else can have some points as well. So it's fine. So we're gonna move on to the last round now, which is the defining moment round. And because this has taken way too long, I'm going to limit you to 45 seconds for this round. So when your 45 seconds is up, you'll hear this. And we're going to start with Todd this time. Roger Federer. Does the athlete have a defining moment that marks them out as the greatest athlete of all time?
Well, a man with 20 Grand Slam wins, whereby each one is probably just as sweet as the other. I don't think that there's or he's ever come out and said that one stands out above the rest. He's also played in front of the 2 largest tennis crowds of all time. His consistency and how he's been able to win over his career. His win percentage is 82%. He's just been against the top 10. He's got a 65% win percentage. So I think for him, it's not just about, winning the Super Bowl or winning the World Series. It's not like that when it comes to tennis. What he's been able to do has been amazing over his whole career.
Chelsea. What's his name? Tiger Woods. I forgot his name.
There's some golfer we're talking about.
Yeah.
I think that not that dissimilar to what Todd's saying. When you're talking about someone who's won 82 PGA Tour events, has the second most major wins with 15, has the lowest career scoring average in PGA history. Maybe it was when he was the youngest to win a career Grand Slam. I think that he's had a number of really great wins that have been I would argue he's had a number of them. So from kind of the earlier, big, exciting, maybe his first win to being able to make this comeback at the Masters. I think that he's had a variety of major moments, but kind of defining different parts of his career because it's been so long. There's been phases. I think you can make an argument that he's had a few of them. And that they have created the catalog of greatness in his career.
Okay, same question, Hugh Gilmore. Does Eric Cantona have a defining moment? I think I know what this might be.
Well, I did a quick bit of Googling there in the interim, and I found out he shared a video that was not safe for work online. And I was going to talk about that, but then I don't want to direct people to that video. But I thought that I don't know if he is good because of that video now. So my point will be that he is currently on Netflix. I haven't watched what he's got on Netflix, but I did Google. He's done 38 different movies. That's more than me. So that's bound to be a defining moment of his career.
If any one of those movies stands out as particularly career defining?
The best one.
Okay. Todd, no, Leah, defining moment. Again, we've kind of gone over this. Did Kerri Strug have any other defining moments, or are we just going to kind of focus back in on that greatest moment of 1996 gymnastics in the Olympics?
It is the defining moment, and it kind of set off the United States as becoming a powerhouse in the sport. I think that, when ESPN did their 25th anniversary and they look back on the top 100 sporting events, it was ranked 51st. And that's the only gymnastics moment on there. And I think what is really important is that, it really changed the tone for the whole sport. And listening to her talk about it, one of the things that I love is that she said, I was able to put aside my fears or rational notions of what might happen and let my body do what it knows how to do. She'd done the vault 1,000 times. She said, I let the adrenaline help push me through, but I had put in the hard work prior to that moment. There's no special ingredient to doing amazing things. And it's about doing the work, and it's about relying on your ability to push aside everything else and be as tough as possible in the moment where everything matters. And we're the moment where it's the most maximum amount of pressure you could possibly put on a person. And that to rise to that occasion, I think, speaks for itself.
Okay. What a way to kind of finish. So at the end of the first 4 rounds, the scores are that everybody has some points. How many I will leave up to you to decide. The final round is just for any kind of final comments. If you've got anything that you really want to get off your chest that you haven't had a chance to say about your athlete, to really sell them as the mental GOAT, any kind of final comments from anyone?
I think we have to give credit to the idea that Tiger Woods was able to perform under pressure when every aspect of his life was crumbling around him, and that he was still able to show up and perform for 2 years of his life melting into absolute shit, and yet showed up on the golf course and consistently played and consistently won. So I think toughness is when life is shit and performance is still fantastic.
Anyone else? Any final comments? Is there any facts about Eric Cantona that you just want to just get out there, Hugh?
When the seagulls follow the trawler, it's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. The end.
I'm dumbfounded.
I have to say one of the best goals I've ever seen live was Eric Cantona scoring at Sheffield United in a FA Cup game. I think it was around about sort of 90. would say 95, 96, somewhere in there. Just the amazing goal, most amazing goal I've ever seen.
My granny could score at Sheffield United.
I live in Sheffield. I'm not from Sheffield, so I don't take any offense at that whatsoever.
I'm not sure if you're trying to offend me, but it's just not working.
No, I know.
I have no affinity for either Sheffield team, but I will go and watch them play if I have free tickets.
Anybody else? Leah, Todd, any last statements?
I think it's important to remember that Kerri Strug was not supposed to be the star of this team, that it was supposed to be Dominic Moceanu, that she was the next Nadia Comaneci, and that everybody had hyped her up and she was supposed to be this amazing thing. And she's the one who fell and choked right before Kerri Strug went. And Kerri Strug had been a really consistent team member. This was her second Olympics. She was put on the in the anchor spot in vault because she had won it at the Olympic trials, but nobody was really talking about her, that nobody was really paying attention to her, that she was there, that everybody's like, great, she's doing a good job, but she's not this person. And you know, she really stepped up to the moment and she put everything that she'd had. She even talked about her cue phrases that she used right before she vaulted. When it was all down to her, she's the one who was able to step up to the plate, and now she's the only one that everybody remembers.
I looked up an article, 4 attributes that lead to athletic greatness, and they were care, pride, passion, and high expectations. And I think I could give to all of the athletes who were chosen today. I think they feature prominently in all those categories. So I think it's been really interesting hearing about athletes in a different way, and also hearing about some athletes that I didn't know a whole lot about.
So I suppose, Pete, what I find interesting is that we've all made different value judgments on what we think the greatest of all time is, and it's, can we identify one value that contains the highest good or the highest order of performance? And I think what I'd find interesting is, like, can our guests condense what we've talked about into one single word as a characteristic that they would define as the greatest characteristic?
Can I have 2 words?
Okay, Chelsea.
Chelsea.
I know. Emotional agility.
Interesting.
Leah.
Persistence.
Todd.
Graceful.
Good words.
Your question, Hugh, word that sums up Eric Cantona.
There are many, but I think passion.
Yeah, that occasionally spilled over into assault.
Blind rage.
No, I think it's a really interesting question, and you know, we were going to have a bit of a discussion around some of this stuff, afterwards. By the way, I've decided that it's as much as I want Eric Cantona to win, I've awarded the title of the mental GOAT based on everything that we've taken into consideration today to Kerri Strug.
Woo!
And just watch the video that is linked to in the description, and you'll understand why. But again, as he was saying, it's been a really interesting discussion, and I want to talk a little bit more about what it actually means to be the mental GOAT. Because it's more than just kind of toughness, and we're going to do an episode around toughness and what toughness actually means and some of the issues that we might have with mental toughness. But we talked about whether people can be great without winning, or whether it's like the longevity that's the where the greatness lies. We've talked about overcoming adversity and resilience, a lot of different aspects of what it means to be mentally great. So what we're going to do is bring this episode to a close here, and we're going to pick this discussion up again in the next episode of 80% Mental. Thanks to all of our guests today. It's been a fantastic, informative, insightful discussion all around mental greatness and what it takes to be mentally great. And I'm really looking forward to continuing that discussion in the next episode. So I hope you've enjoyed what you've heard today. Please do subscribe wherever it is that you listen to your podcasts. Check out the website, 80percentmental.com. 80percentmental is all words. And you can tweet us at EPM Podcast. Let us know who you think the mental GOAT is, and I hope that you will join us next time to continue this discussion. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Well, I won't see you because it's a podcast.